everyone. Welcome to this special interview on detoxing for kids with Greer McGuinness. I was lucky enough, my son didn't really experience many effects from mold. I've just been, he's been pretty lucky with his health. But it's always so heartbreaking for me to meet kids who are dealing with the toxic burden, but it's also the most satisfying when they get better because they deserve, the chance to really live kind of more than us adults
Yeah.
in my opinion. So I think you got into this through your own son's history. Is that correct?
Yeah. My son regressed at 19 months into autism. And it was, a very typical, same story that most parents say, that within like a week or so, the lights went out. My son completely, I have videos of him communicating and talking with us and looking at us before that. And then within a matter of a week, it was like something tipped the scales, and all of a sudden he lost everything. He lost his ability to speak, his ability to focus and look at us. He would sit and headbang. He actually just used to sit in a bucket. He wouldn't even like play with his toys appropriately anymore. He just sat in a tub with some pillows in it for like pressure, that sensory
Oh
pressure.
my gosh. Wow.
And so it was like devastating to, I think, me and my husband, because, I'm Western medicine trained, and it was kind of a surreal moment, I think, for me, and I think, just like, you have your mold story and things, it becomes, it's not that you wanted to get in this space, you wanted to learn about this, is like you had to, I had to learn about this. I had to become the expert because nobody else was. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it now, is because that's my driving force, and seeing these kids that have similar stories to my son, it's just like, you want to scream at the top of the mountain, like, watch out, for other parents, but, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. You can out yourself or not. I mean, before your own son experienced it, what was your impression of autism? Did you know what I mean? Did you take it
Yeah.
seriously? Did you think about what caused it? Any of that stuff?
When, like I said, I was Western medicine trained. So we were always taught, and in all, I have a minor in science. So like that whole realm, we were always taught that it was a genetic malformation that happens from birth, and that they were delayed in all milestones since birth. So when this regression happened, I kind of was left feeling very disheveled, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm so confused, because this was not the autism that I learned about. This was not what they taught us in clinicals. This was not during my peds rotation. Like, I didn't learn this. There was no regression. And now we're seeing so many more regressions happening, even older kids. I've had patients who are 3 and 4 years old regressing into autism, or regressing in verbal skills and stuff. And it's like, what is going on? Because this is not normal. The pediatricians and developmental pediatricians are coming out and saying, well, this is how autism presents itself nowadays. It's like, what changed? Something changed. If we didn't change, our genetics haven't really changed. The environment's really the only thing that has changed, causing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, either there was some misunderstanding of autism before, or just a not acknowledging the environment as, a factor, which could be the case as well, right?
They have they used to have different umbrellas for autism: high functioning, low functioning, Asperger's. Now they kind of just put it all together and say you're just autistic. And I think that's kind of where things are getting muddy, because true autism like if you go back from the early, 20s, 30s, 40s of research of autism, it was delayed since birth. These were kids who had developmental delay since they were born, not the fact that they were like regressing. But because I think we're seeing so much more regression now, it's just kind of like, well, we just got to label this as autism because we don't know what else to actually do. We don't know what else is going on.
Yeah, I have so many questions about that, but I'll just say, are most of your clients dealing with autism or some other issues?
Yeah, I get autism, ADHD, gut health, like a lot of gut health
Okay.
issues with kids, severe constipation, eczema, autoimmune dysregulation. So, but pretty much a lot of them are in the realm of neurodiverse, in that realm. And a
Gotcha.
lot of them, the research does show that neurodiverse people, especially kids with autism, ADHD, do have higher amounts of heavy metals and toxicity and gut dysbiosis than neurotypical children. So it does, it kind of just fits in that mold with everything and then what I do.
Okay. Yeah, we don't see kids as much, although I want to take your course and see more kids. But I would say we get more kids with gut issues. And hair loss is now like one that we're attracting because we did some interview around that. So, autism is such a big topic that I would be careful not to call myself a specialist in that without learning more. But I definitely, know a lot about mold and detox in the gut and that kind of a thing. Um, and it's just so interesting that, children are being affected at such young ages. It's not that surprising to me, but it's probably surprising, to, mainstream societies, or if you're raising your kid in a pretty mainstream way and then like you see them regress, it's probably shocking, and you wouldn't think, oh, this is environmental. I'm sure it's just pulls the rug out from you.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my own story, I when I talk to moms, there are many times where moms will get on the phone and just cry. I mean, they
Wow.
feel defeated. And I did a post yesterday because I found a research study that found about 50% of moms with autistic children are depressed. And that like really hit home because that was me too. You kind of feel secluded, like nobody else really understands what you're going through or what you're going with. But now, and my son's 9 now. When he was first diagnosed, back when he was 2, like it was still like a hush hush. Now I feel like there is more surrounding it. I feel there's more information coming out, and people are building better communities for support of parents, because I kind of feel like it was a gut punch. I remember calling my dad when we got out of the doctor's office, when they said that he had like level 2, he was severe verbal delay, and I remember calling my dad and I was just sobbing. Like I didn't know. I just didn't know what to do. No one gave me any direction.
No, yeah.
No one gave me any support, other than, okay, here's your diagnosis. Now call these people and start your therapies. And it was like 20 hours a week of ABA and education and speech therapy. Like other moms raised my child. And that was very defeating for me as a parent.
Huh. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Uh, how is your son doing now, as kind of an example?
Yeah, he is great. Once I started detoxing him, and it was funny because when I first got into this and I came home and I was explaining this to my husband, he probably looked at me like I had 6 heads. And he was like, what in God's green earth are you talking about? What are you trying to do with him? And I'm like, we have these tests, and, I said, just let me try, there's no harm in trying. This isn't going to hurt, and within, I would say 4 to 6 weeks, he started speaking more. Like his verbal skills like improved. All of a sudden he started, this was a kid who couldn't even label anything in a kitchen. Like he couldn't tell you a refrigerator or a stove. And this was at 4.5.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then all of a sudden I walked out one day of the shower, and this was about, I want to say about 6 or 8 weeks into detoxing, like heavy metals and stuff. And I walked out of the shower and he was sitting on his little chair with the dry erase board, and he was writing his ABCs for the first time. like in order. I like ran and got my phone and I was like, I wanted to videotape and I'm like holding my towel, like trying to videotape. And my husband's like, what are you doing? I'm like, he's writing, like, so that was really, it was really amazing to see, if I didn't see it, I probably would have never believed it, kind of thing. And so now he's very verbal and he is very smart. He's still in a self-contained classroom just because he gets distracted very easily. But he's, on par with his students and his kids, and he can communicate and he could talk to me and he understands. We have football tonight, so he plays regular, sports with children, so it's really, it's kind of like a big sigh of relief sometimes for me to see how far, those first couple of years were really tough. You're not sure where you're going to end up. And to see him now at 9, still a little bit behind, comprehensive and stuff, but man, we are just like picking up that pace. And, as he's growing and maturing, he's just picking up more and more skills.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like this first couple of years, you're maybe doing a more conventional route and not seeing, I mean, I can't even imagine on a marriage and a family too, going all through this would be like, it's a lot,
It's intense. I
Yeah.
would say you have to have faith in your partner. And my husband has been super supportive this whole entire time throughout this whole process with everything that I've done. And, if I say I'm going to try this, he goes, okay, no problem. I trust you. And you have to have that trust with the partner and going through this, because sometimes I do feel when he was first diagnosed, we really didn't talk about it. And I think that really did disrupt us a little bit. We should have communicated a little bit more, but I think you just don't know how to communicate with that. Like, you're on two different wavelengths a bit.
It's a lot of feelings, a lot of reactions. Yeah, a lot of your own history. Yeah, and what are the words for it? So good for him that he supports you trying things. I know when I worked in fertility, I didn't always see that attitude. It can be, a lot of arguing about philosophy, but it's like, why not try stuff? You got a kid who's not speaking.
Yeah. And that's what when I first started, I was finding YouTube channels like, I found Dr. Klinghardt, and I was like all about, I was really involved with anyone who, Dr. Hamilton, Debbie Hamilton, who's like a pioneer with autism and stuff too. I just would read books, podcasts, like anything that I could get my hands onto that could give me more guidance and expand. I started doing more testing and like, testing for everything, Lyme disease, heavy metals, mold, environmental toxins, gut health, like you name it. I've done it. Because I always said I will leave no stone unturned, for him.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it's so important, whether for your kids or yourself, to have that attitude. Doesn't mean you do everything at once if you can't afford to, or you're too tired, but you do owe it to yourself and your kids. So let's see. So now you're doing testing as a clinician for other parents. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I support other parents and practitioners. So I, like I said, there was no roadmap here. There was no person who was, I joined so many mom Facebook groups on, autism support and stuff, and trying to find like what worked best for kids. And through, I went back to school. I actually got my master's, while I was trying to learn all this, because I wanted to focus on epidemiology, which is research. And because I felt the answers lied in the research that we have, and we have a lot of it. So I started using biomedical testing, things, just simple testing, stool testing, gut health, environmental toxins, mold, heavy metals. And that really was like, I think because I'm a dietitian, I look at things at a different way, in a different light than most other practitioners. And I also am a mom, and I'm an autism mom. So if I've seen some of these protocols practitioners give, and I'm like, have you met an autistic child? Like, you think they're going to take all that? Like, I don't think so. Like, we got to back up the road a bit here. So it's really one of those things that I think, because of my experience and my background and creating the rebalance roadmap has been a blueprint. And many providers will come to me and ask me about how they can rebalance a child, because I'm sure you've seen, and when you're trying to detox mold, you could have a very sensitive child or a patient. And if you tried one or two supplements and they have a very bad reaction, you got to go, wait a minute, back up. Like, what's going on? What did we miss? And that's what I'm always trying to prevent with kids, because I get many kids and many practitioners going, what do I give? Like, how do I start this process? Because every 6 months, a child is going to be a whole different person from the time they're born. If you look at their growth, every 6 months, they're like a whole different person. So their body's changing, they're growing, their gut is, growing, changing with microbes, their liver is expanding, their kidneys are expanding. Like, it's a whole different person. So what you detox at a year, at 15, 16 months to 2 years to 2.5 is all going to be different. Your interventions and their nutritional needs are going to be different. So that's where people come to me and they're like, okay, how do I start this detoxification process with a child that is probably extremely highly sensitive to anything? Now, what do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So who is coming to you? Maybe there might be a range, or some people already had testing. Some people have like no idea what this functional medicine stuff is. Like, where do you start with people?
Yeah, I do get a lot of people for second opinions. They want to review lab work with me and get my input intake on it. And I'm happy to do that with people too, because it's always nice to have, we get second opinions all the time, even in Western medicine. If somebody, they just want, it's your child. So I totally understand and respect that. I get a lot of parents that, just got diagnosed, their child just got diagnosed. And all of a sudden, somebody whispered in their ear, like, biomedical, a quick little snippet of something to say, hey, go check, start looking into other things that could be, helpful for you and your child. So I do get a lot of different, most of my kids though are usually under the age of like 8 or 9 most of the time.
Okay. I'm just going to put your website in the chat here. Okay, so some are coming for a second opinion. They're already trying to do different things. Some just got diagnosed. Do you sort of require testing for everyone, or depends on the case?
I do typically. I kind of explain it like this is, I could put a protocol together, like a blanket protocol, but it's basically like throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something's going to stick. I have no idea. When I do testing, especially like, say, for instance, environmental toxins, heavy metals, and molds, like if someone's coming to me thinking, and I'm sure you get this too, I need to detox. Okay, well, what are we detoxing? That's a very wide, range here. What are we detoxing? Well, I think heavy metals. All right, well, let's test. Oh, nope, you're full of mold. You don't got a heavy metal problem. You have a mold problem. The symptomology of adults and children with the toxic burden overlaps. So if you got heavy metals and environmental toxins and mold, you might have similar symptoms. So it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what that person really has. And the interventions are all going to be different. So I do kind of say, at least we got to start with some testing to really kind of narrow down what's going on inside the system, because we don't want to, test, don't guess, we really want to know. It's the whole premise of functional medicine and root cause. And, I'm sure, many people in this world, it's for individuality. We're not cookie cutters. We want that individuality. We want that specialized treatment for us. And that's what we want to provide.
And do you always run a gut test in that first round as well?
Yeah. So my 3 basic testing, which I call.
Otherwise, everyone's going to ask us later.
No, my 3 foundational approach is a gut test, a micronutrient, and a toxin panel. That's what I call my foundation approach. And there could be so many other things going on with that child or person, and it could be Lyme disease, it could be neurotransmitter issues, but the foundation package and the foundation approach is what your whole body system is based off of. So if you could do organic acids, you could do neurotransmitters, but if you're deficient or your gut is not working, those are going to be off. So there's no point of running those until you get the foundation pieces working, and then you can kind of go into the rest of that.
Okay. I know you just said everybody's different, but are there certain patterns you see, or like, I don't know. I mean, you must have looked at a lot of labs by now.
Oh, yes. So, it's actually kind of funny. I was having this conversation with somebody. If you're living in a specific state, sometimes, like if you're a Floridian, like if someone from Florida or California, Canada, or East Coast by water, one of the things I'm always going to think of is mold. Tennessee or Seattle, Washington, wet areas, have tons of mold. And that's, not just your home, but schools. You have to also think of schools that kids are in as well. But I do see heavy metals a lot. That is, I think, probably, if I had to guess or estimate, I would probably say 8 out of every 10 kids that I have tons of heavy metals in them.
I almost feel like that sounds more than adults. I mean, I know you're looking at a very specific population.
Well, remember with adults, they've had decades to store their heavy metals. So it's not always going to be free floating in the system. And this is why sometimes we do suggest like provoking an adult test, because we want to push, what's hiding out. With kiddos, they're typically eating more, drinking more, inhaling more, absorbing more at a faster, quicker rate and turnover. So a lot of times, they will be storing some, but they're also going to be excreting some. So
okay.
it's
You're
a little
catching them.
different.
Okay.
Yeah. So say for instance, an adult, especially someone who was maybe born in the 60s and the 70s with lead, when lead was like a really high in paints and gasolines and stuff. As soon as lead comes into the body, a lot of the times it gets taken up into the enzymatic reactions over things like calcium for the bones. So that's why lead goes into the bones and your teeth. That's where they first started realizing lead went into the bones, because they looked at baby teeth. So, a lot of osteoporosis that we see today is not really due to low calcium. It's actually due to heavy metal contamination of things like lead and cadmium that go to the bones and push out calcium and iron. Okay. So a lot of the times you do need to provoke and push things out because they have been stored for a very, very long time.
Interesting. Yeah. And you do see those mineral imbalances on adult tests. Okay, so you see mold in the wet states, heavy metals almost all the time.
Yeah, heavy metals, especially because heavy metals, a lot of it honestly has to do with our horrible drinking water. Most people are just drinking tap water. And I know you're an advocate and I'm an advocate for clean water supply. And that's a lot of the times. I just had a kid last week who had high levels of arsenic in his blood. Like his mom went and took him for blood tests. We looked online, and sure enough, one of the highest levels in their water is arsenic. So these, if you're just constantly, we drink water every day. I mean, it's not anything that is, apparent, So when you're just accumulating and drinking these toxins every day, this is, mom to baby in utero, and now child is now drinking it, and they don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I'm just testing my water now for radium. I haven't sent it in yet, but I thought, well, let me see what the test shows, because I've been learning a lot about that.
Yeah, it's probably, in low doses, heavy metals, like if you look at heavy metals, they don't biodegrade, they don't break down. Okay. So, even, pesticides will have a half-life, they will break down, they will degrade. Heavy metals do not do that. So once the heavy metal is in your system, it's there. until you actually literally get it out. It only wreaks more havoc when it's in your system. And even at low ranges, small amounts of heavy metals can impact the brain. And that's where they cause like learning issues, memory problems. They affect the mitochondrial, so just because, I mean, if you look at the lead level over time has decreased to less than 5, we want less than 5. We should be wanting 0, because it serves no purpose whatsoever. And even at low doses, it can cause neurological issues.
Okay. So what about the gut? What do you usually see in the gut?
I will see candida. I see tons of bacteria, different, Campylobacter, H. pylori, E. coli has been popping up a few times for a couple of my patients. So, protozoa, helminths, little invaders, I call them, our little minion invaders. Typically I will see tons of inflammation, very low secretory IgA. So like low immune system, kids always sick. That's usually, my son is always sick. They're constantly ill. And very low digestive support is typically what I'm going to see on a regular basis for a lot of my kiddos.
I know that Dr. Shaw from Great Plains is big on the Clostridia as being a factor. Is that kind of now just known as like one of the many factors at this point?
Yeah, and low Clostridia a lot of the time has to do with really low polyphenol foods and poor digestive support, which, when I'm dealing with kids on the spectrum, they eat maybe 10, 15 things and it's not polyphenols.
Yeah.
So it's not, so that's where, a lot of that has to do with what I call the snowball effect, picky eating, poor diet, and it just kind of snowballs down into all the issues that we have. Because how can you fix the gut, or how can you, prevent these invaders from happening if we have a poor diet, if they're not consuming what they need to when they're supposed to?
Yeah. Okay. How about the micronutrient panel? What do you see?
Yeah, that's always I want to say that's probably one of the worst hot messes that I see. Some kids are not terrible. I want to say, some you could get them to eat meat, like a meatball or some chicken nuggets and stuff. But a lot of the times we will see low B vitamins, your B3, your B6, which, is so important for neurotransmitter pathways. I would say a lot of low minerals all the time, low EPA, low fish oils, because none of them are eating fish. So you have, severely elevated oxidative stress, low vitamin A. So that's always, I would say for that one, I could not pinpoint, because literally every child is so different depending on their diet and, how well mom and dad can get nutrition into them. Some are actually taking health shakes, to balance it out. So, but I could see a lot of like low B's, low A, low D for sure. Low vitamin D is like still, I mean, we've been talking about low vitamin D for decades and we still have low vitamin D across the board.
We do. It's true. I've been learning a lot about chlorella and spirulina lately. So like nutrient dense, but I don't know if you can get kids to
That's actually really easy. I actually did an
Okay, good.
Instagram on that one with chlorophyll for St. Patty's Day, because it turns it green. And, my little one loves the Hulk, so he'll do anything green. And it's like a godsend that he likes the Hulk. But yeah, things like chlorophyll and chlorella, even in small, you could, you don't have to bombard a kid all at once and say like, here, take like 10 tablets. That's what you need. If you just crush it up and mix it in something, it really doesn't have taste. So you could mix that in juice, chlorophyll. I mix it in water. It doesn't taste like anything. It just turns it a different color. So if your child doesn't like color, or it has an aversion to green, which many of them do, get a stainless steel cup that they can't see through and just squirt it right in. And same with, if you look at activated charcoal as a binder, that's a really hard thing to get kids to take. Other than chocolate pudding, I just say mix it in water, put it in a stainless steel cup and give it to them to drink, because then they can't see through it and it doesn't really have a taste.
I like that. I think we've kind of said, adults and kids are different. A little bit of like how you approach, how you've learned to approach kids in a way that works for their physiology.
Trial and error and using my son a little bit as a guinea pig. I've been really fortunate that I think I just understood the assignment. I just kind of figured things out of what works best. And both my parents were school teachers. So my mom taught me something called the wow theory, which is whatever one works. So whatever one works for that child, whether it be that kid only takes the gummy, that kid only takes the powder, only a chewable, if we can find what works best for that child, then we're going to be set up for success. So once we're able to kind of figure out the child, and I think just for me doing this for so long now and understanding the background piece of this, and what I'm looking at. I mean, I can't even tell you how many hours I've spent on each toxin, just learning the toxin, how it moves, how it mimics in the human body, and then what binds to it and what pulls it out. So for me, it's a really, I kind of feel comfortable in it, and it's not scary to me. And I know many providers are like, well, I'm not touching kids. Like it's too, and to me, I feel pretty confident in it. It's not a very scary process. Once you understand like my rebalanced roadmap, it kind of puts it into perspective on not being afraid and having confidence. And that's what I want to always teach people is toxins are not going anywhere, and we need to really be confident in how we approach the environment and how we approach our nutrition intake, because it's only us that we have control over.
Yeah, doing nothing is not really an option that's going to get any results. So, okay, so one of your approaches is customize it because a kid maybe will eat certain textures or drink certain things and not the other. So that's a great tip. Um, to not be afraid to try things. So I know you're teaching practitioners now. You obviously use some second opinions. You talked about what other ways can parents learn from you and just get those skills to try things.
Yeah, so my course is for parents and practitioners. So I kind of
Okay.
walk them. I tried to create something that could be used for everybody, because parents,
Okay.
I found honestly in the autism world, these moms, they know more than the doctors
Oh
sometimes.
yeah,
They
I'm sure.
are, they want to learn. They want to be the experts. They want to be empowered. And I'm all for it as a mom, so for me, I'm happy to teach parents, practitioners, whoever wants. I do one-to-ones with testing. I have a private Facebook group too that people can ask questions on Instagram too. So I'm always trying to figure out what my population, what these parents and practitioners need, so I could provide that, because we're really, my goal is that I'm only one person, and I want to be able to train other practitioners to safely, detox their patients too, so that they can do the same thing that I'm doing and feel confident, and their patients will actually see results.
I love it. Yeah, okay. Well, I wanna take your next course. Your first course pulled up. I was like, "What?"
It did. I was actually shocked. Like, it's really funny because sometimes I think as a practitioner, you kind of self-doubt yourself a bit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll create the course, because some practitioners have asked me and parents have asked me. And I was like, yeah, it's probably, if I get 10, 15 people, I'd be happy. And within like 6 days, I sold out 30. And I was like, okay, I guess this is a hot topic that people really want. So I was all
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, and I love that you're teaching it forward. We're actually creating a mold practitioner course too, which anyone can also take.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's the next step is like I can't well, I wrote a book. I made a lot of resources, but we all learn differently.
Yeah.
So it's like my next step is to empower more practitioners that when a client comes in, instead of just knowing, 5% about mold, they know 80% about mold to help that person
And we all have to learn from one another. I mean, I've taken so many courses, and, unfortunately, a lot of the courses I took, which I loved, were not geared towards children. So I had to
it's pretty
take,
rare.
I had to take all of these adult courses and then go, okay, how can I make this work for kids? How can I modify this to make this work for my population? And I think that was a big challenge, because the information that they have is like great, but I'm like, can't use that product on a kid, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, I also try to work on other modalities, like, just if we could do infused water. I know that sounds like so stupid and so minimal, but if you could get a kid to drink infused water with like fresh fruits and vegetables, not only is it getting them some minerals into their diet, but it also does help the detoxification and the kidneys and the liver open up more. So it's like, I try to look for anything and everything that I can use that's both a supplement, non-supplement, a food, that I could get kids to take. Even if topical, I'm okay with topical. If I could, whatever I could get these kids to do, because some kids are great at taking supplements, others are not. So what can we do to help the kids? Because like every kid is so different.
Yeah, it sounds similar. I have adult clients who say, I'm sensitive to everything. I can't do anything. And
That's me.
oh, is it?
That's me.
And what I always say is like, there's something you can do, because I really believe it. I mean, I've had I can think of one client who is the most sensitive, like insane. Like he would react to like orange juice, you get like, blisters on his mouth or something. We just had to go like so slow, so little with him. But most people can handle it. Like if you're not doing well with pills, let's have you do more techniques.
Yeah.
This infused water is a great tip. It's like, where can we get a little win? Because those little wins add up. And instead of like boo-hooing that you can't take everything, just see what you can do. It will make a difference. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have what I kind of started was like my 4 pillars to detox. And it was basically a way for parents to just start one easy focus of cleaning up the environment. Let's not even like worry about supplements right now. Let's not worry, we could do all those things, but let's just start with like my 4 pillars, which is clean water, clean air, clean food, clean products. If we think about kids and what I was saying earlier, like a kid will drink, a little kid will drink up to 3, 4, 5 times as much as an adult. So they're drinking so much more water, meaning more contaminated water. Wow. They breathe in more air, and they can absorb 30% more toxins through their skin. So let's clean up the air around them, especially if they got mold in the home. Clean food. Let's start making sure we're washing our fruits and vegetables and, baking soda, or, getting more organic. And let's start cleaning up those products that they use every day. Bath soaps, laundry detergent, even your cotton sheet, you getting cotton sheets can sometimes make a difference. So if we can just start with our 4 pillars of, detox, that's what I work on with my parents too. At first, it kind of it helps the parents, again, empowering them, taking control over the environment and the ability to actually make a difference in their child's life. Because sometimes I think as parents, we feel very helpless. Like we're defeated. We've already let this happen. Now what? But now if we could start taking over that confidence and start like removing those, things around our environment, it will make a big difference.
That's a great point. And I may have forgotten in a sense, because my clients have mostly done those steps already. But that's great, especially, if this coming on suddenly for a family. I know when I was first sick with mold, and I already had this huge background in natural medicine, I detoxed my house a lot. Unfortunately, not of mold, because I didn't know that was involved, but all the products, everything, like, so that's true. That's a lot you can do. I always encourage people to, just get more fresh air, get more movement. Like there's some things that are really simple and like probably boost up. Like, I mean, I know you said like your son first wouldn't probably do that, but those simple things can make you feel like you said you're succeeding.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back, grounding and stuff, like just like, he loved, didn't like, I mean, half the time he'd walk in the house and just strip naked, like that was like him. But I'm like, okay, we're going to go do some grounding. And he would lay on the floor. And that was like his grounding. And I'm like, okay, so you can get those things in, and I know they sound trivial, but they really do help the child balance out. Remember, these are kids who are so dysregulated. They don't know if they're coming or going. And I usually call this my flight mode. They're in 100% flight mode running out the door. So that's why detoxing them doesn't typically work, because their bodies can't fight. Most of them, once you start detoxing, they basically crash.
Oh,
they
wow.
get really sick because their bodies are in no way, shape, or form ready to fight a detox. So I call this my build up and prime stage, where we're building up their system through gut and nutrition. We're priming the body, getting it ready for detox, and then we can actually detox and see how it goes.
Yeah, so true too. People want to jump to the detox. And I love, like, even as adults, like functioning adults, we can be guilty of like not being present, not being grounded. So I feel like we can, really model that for
Yeah.
kids. Like, let's do it together. Let's lay down. Or let's go in the yard or whatever. It sounds great.
Yeah, and our kids are a lot of times very visual. So anything that's a visual thing for them to mimic and do, they're probably all going to be about. So I did a lot of modeling behavior, and that was what worked best for us. So it really depends on the child, but most of our kiddos are very visual. They need to see everything first before they do it.
Okay. Well, I'm curious now about your system, because it does sound like it has kind of steps and preparing and different ideas. If anybody from here ends up taking the course too, definitely say hi to me. I want to know where you came. So the site is Biomedical Healing for Kids. Oh, I can put that on the screen actually. There we go. And you can sign up for a wait list for the course or schedule with Greer.
Yeah, the wait list is opening this Friday. So everyone who's on the wait list gets first dibs at the seats for the course. So I'm super excited. So we're finishing up week 5 right now, going into week 6, it's only a 6-week course. Like I said, I tried to make it, I'm very understanding of time with people. You're a practitioner, you're busy, you're a mom. Like, I'm not gonna, anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes or most of the modules. And then we do live group training. So the first week modules is my 4 pillars to detox, understanding toxins a bit and how they really do affect kids today. Week 2 is lab interpretation and basically the 411 on some of the understanding the toxins when it comes to lab interpretation. Week 3 is the gut and working on the microbiome. Week 4 is micronutrients, liver, and methylation. And then week 5 is the priming, priming the body, getting the body ready for detox, which is a very important stage for kiddos. And then week 6, I talk about all the different types of supplements that can be used to detox and how to kind of use them, and some protocol examples of how I use between low sensitivity kids and high sensitivity kids. And that's I think probably was like the hardest thing to create, is like a protocol, like, because again, it's the wow theory, whatever one's going to work for that kid, but it gives people kind of like an idea of a template to work with.
Yeah, you've got to kind of organize it some way. Yeah, similar in my book, like, you don't get to detox till practically the end of the book. Sorry.
Yeah. And again, I'm not claiming to be the expert of all experts. And there are thousands of supplements. There are thousands of protocol. Like, I just created something that I could apply and I saw work with test results.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was fantastic.
No, I appreciate it. I really do. I love everything that you do. Like I said, I've been following you for quite some time, and all the work that you do. I'm a mold, person too. Toxic mold issues. So, your stuff has been really helpful for me too as an adult. So I appreciate everything that you've done.
Great.